When never met infinity, they laughed about the symmetry, spinning the rigidity of now with timeless imagery. The science of simplicity's more than wickedly complex, complicated by quickly taking your conscience out of context. Mysteries a long quest, scattered with snakes and ladders, where matter of fact is actually badgered by hatter laughter. Gradually breaking patterns, lacing the status quo, and the question to your answer is hidden within a rabbit hole. Radically practical or practically uninhabitable. Learning is half the battle, the other half is collateral. Rattling all your ribs and then tickling every malleable bit of the babbling riddle. The caterpillar is whittle. Like, who are you? A rational, literal sense of self. You're a little of what you thought and a lot of everything else. When elements melt together, irrelevance helps the stock. With piety's perfect pose, you're the paradigm of a paradox. Paddling aftershocks from premonitions of laughing clocks that tick like a chatterbox but never actually have to talk. In order for you to listen, envisioning, spitting back the wisdom. When a cat that's grinning is the catalyst for the cataclysm. Everyone's an Alice who wonders where they'll land when they catch up with the time, but have grown too tall to understand. Open up your mind to the possibilities of a Mad Hatter. Can I offer you some tea? Everyone's an Alice who wonders where they'll land when they catch up with the time, but have grown too tall to understand. Open up your mind to the possibilities of a Mad Hatter. Can I offer you some tea? What is the circumference of nothingness? Is everything wondrous under the sun, spun with a sharp and sudden twist? Cluttered in a puzzle, dancing upon the tongue and lips. Coming to grips with the fact that life is more than a fungus trip. Governed by love and the ultimate search for a purpose, and urgent to find what lurks slightly beneath the surface. Furious swirling currents work perfectly as the simile for each random occurrence as you sail idiosyncrasy. Currently in its service, for certain that there's a trap door through which you can escape, or better yet be found and saved. Countless days adding up until your mind's divided between riding like a passenger or flying as the pilot. Excited but highly cautious of what society offers, like there's often wobbly irony hiding behind the posture. So you harbor a variety of monsters called anxiety. You're too tall, too short, or maybe you're just not mad enough to have a cup of acridity, dragging a bag of blasphemy, blasting whatever facet of passion fashion this pageantry. After which you casually acknowledge what has happened, but you're astonished by the fact that you actually accomplished nothing. Like, who put the function in dysfunctional? Someone uncomfortable with the grudgingly wonderful world of punctual. Laced with an abundance of combustible assumptions, complicates the long discussion as to who will push the button, thus summoning something radically raw, not to be seen as a character flaw, cause the tree knows who carries the saw. So bury the hatchet rapidly and remember who's the majesty of your head, cause the roses don't always have to be red. Everyone's an Alice who wonders where they'll land when they catch up with the time, but have grown too tall to understand. Open up your mind to the possibilities of a Mad Hatter. Can I offer you some tea? Everyone's an Alice who wonders where they'll land when they catch up with the time, but have grown too tall to understand. Open up your mind to the possibilities of a Mad Hatter. Can I offer you some tea? Climb into the ever-winding, spiraling kaleidoscope design you call an open mind and try to find your destiny. When equity of knowing why the ocean tide that crashes never splashes twice identical's the only focus of your time. Blind to the motives of the most emphatic vision, you went fishing for a guppy and suddenly found religion. But decline the formal system that incorporates the rowing team of one dream when you would rather paddle a dinghy upstream. Sunshine is always present, even behind a cumulus conglomerate, reminding us of a universal optimist. When skies above the populace turn ominous and cry a sermon reminiscent of the fall of grace when autumn dies. There's a rhyme for every reason you define the yearly season change as merely time to rearrange so seedlings have an even plane to reach the highest canopy of humanity's fantasy, where nothing is quite as mad as the vanity of our sanity. Mechanically stubborn like clockwork, settled suitably between a child's question and beautiful ambiguity. Like every fork in the road is laden with food for thought, and only you choose which side of the spoon reflection you are not. Truth walks awkwardly, wobbling on the edge of what is possible, philosophically bottled in mediocrity, when often the illogical property your debacle you follow is more than solid to coddle your curiosity. So dream big, Alice, your teacup or a chalice. The challenge for your life is in trying to find a balance. So to know the end, first you must begin. You can lose your mind and lose your head and still be left with just a grin. Everyone's an Alice who wonders where they'll land when they catch up with the time, but have grown too tall to understand. Open up your mind to the possibilities of a Mad Hatter. Can I offer you some tea? Everyone's an Alice who wonders where they'll land when they catch up with the time, but have grown too tall to understand. Open up your mind to the possibilities of a Mad Hatter. Can I offer you some tea?
Hey everyone, welcome to today's virtual premiere for Playtest, which is a proof of concept of Phil Svitek's upcoming film In Search of Sunrise. I'm Alina Vission, and of course I'm joined by Phil Svitek, the director of the film. And we want to thank you guys for taking the time on this Saturday to join us and to experience this with us and ask some questions that you might have for Phil. First, I want to talk a little bit about Phil's prior feature film, Idol. Phil, can you give us a little bit of background on it?
Sure. So I had always wanted to be a filmmaker, and so in 2019, I said, "Enough's enough. Let me go make a feature film." And so I got a group of my friends together that were actors and producers, and we did it. Right, we did it on a shoestring budget, just wanting to prove that we could do it. And through that experience, I think the movie came out really well. It's about kind of various people in LA, specifically living in or working and interacting in downtown LA. And it came out pretty good. And it's been getting a lot of good reception in the film festival circuit. And now we're in talks for distribution in terms of all that. So I can't say too much about that, but the film is called Idol, and it's on my website if you want to find out more about it.
That's awesome. So what made you want to do a second feature film?
I think it's this idea that I just wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't a one-hit wonder, if I'm being honest.
Well, I think people are in store for something really special. This is a very cool concept, and I'm really glad that everyone gets to see it now. The fruits of your labor are paying off. So let's actually take a look at Playtest.
Once again, Tech is changing the game by composing a collage of you from your digital footprint. Dynamic, superfast, revolutionary immersive experience. Digital fantasy so vivid, it's more real than real.
There a problem?
It's having issues latching onto a part of our unconscious. Give me a second.
For some reason, you can't find whatever top of mind and tap into that.
Is she able to resist somehow?
Don't worry. I think I got it.
Yeah, Daddy needs you for something really important. He needs you to do a play test.
Doesn't that sound fun?
No.
Aya. They're about to call you. Nervous? Don't worry. It means you care. That's a good thing.
I can't be here.
Aya, you've already done the work. Now is the time to celebrate that.
And she was able to take her love for poetry to do something that so few manage. Not only did she receive honors for her research on Walt Whitman's lost years during the Civil War, but also published a collection of her own poems.
Your mother would be so proud.
This isn't real.
This never happened.
Very cool proof of concept. I'm so excited to really dive in with Phil and find out, what motivated him to do this. So, Phil, let's get a little bit of the backstory, the conception of this whole thing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I'm in some sense, like with the art that I try to make, I'm in a place, I always try to do it from this place of, what do I want to say? What's meaningful to me? And what kind of matters and what can resonate with audiences, right? And when the pandemic really hit, like most people, I kind of struggled and trying to find my own way for a variety of reasons. And ironically, like this idea of Aya and her journey with her father really came to my mind. And I can't obviously reveal too much because there's like, in terms of what the movie ends up being, it's not what you expect. And I think, that was part of a greater lesson / journey exploration that I wanted to go on at the time that we started writing. And obviously it's still exciting to me. But also, this idea of like this machine, dynamic content, immersion being this like, what would a perfect form of entertainment be, right? We're so like media insatiable. And it's like, well, what would a personalized experience be like? And is that possible? And, what does that mean for art and specifically artists? So there was a lot of things that I was kind of grappling with. And sometimes to my detriment that there was just too many ideas and I keep having to parse things out of it because, the more singular you can make a message, the stronger it becomes. But that was really the inception of it.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about the writing process. I know, obviously, writing during a pandemic is probably a little bit different of a process, like mentally, than writing, during normal times, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stuff happening and I didn't want to be blind to the world. But in my own weird way, every now and then I just like everybody need an escape, and like writing became my drug. And early on I got together with Jason Squamata and I said, hey, I think this sounds like something up your alley. Would you be willing to go on this journey with me? And so it was good to have a support system. And then he would write something or come up with something and I'd get excited, and then I would add ideas to that and he'd get excited. So it was a lot, there felt like this connection of solidarity rather than just doing it as a solo writer in that moment.
Right. Now, going from the writing process to actually filming, what was that like? Because like we said, it's a pandemic and there was a ton of social guidelines and restrictions just in the normal world. So how did you go about getting this done?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly was a big one. And, obviously we were filming a small portion of it. And, part of the question becomes, ultimately this is intended to be a feature film. So it was like, what would represent the movie the best way? So we picked kind of a portion, you can see that it's the portion where Aya goes into the simulation for the first time. So that felt like a natural, good spot. And it also, it had the least intensity in terms of, locations and people and so forth, yet still represented it well. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like there was moments of like going into it, like there's pressure when you make a movie, but in this sense, it's like, am I going to kill anybody? And we were like, and here's the thing, we were as safe, we tried to be as safe as possible. We had everyone get tested beforehand. I was very upfront with people, because it wasn't without risk. And, I made sure like, hey, like, please take this seriously. And even the way we shot it, most people weren't in the scenes together. So like you see the principal with the two, the guidance counselor and Aya, none of that like actually happened, even in, they never kind of ultimately all met. So there was a lot of pressure from all sides of how to pull this off. And it's all against the green screen. So, no one can ultimately envision what this thing is. Sometimes not even me, which I can admit now in hindsight. So yeah, much different experience.
Definitely. Tell us like why you chose to go with kind of filming it like Sin City, it's very there's some animation, and walk us through that process.
Well, I would say the process is more like Sin City in that, like Robert Rodriguez with Sin City, he filmed everything. He would film like, let's say Mickey Rourke, and even though he'd be in a scene with like multiple people, he filmed everyone individually. So it was more about the process. Now, as far as like if the animation style, I love movies like Scanner Darkly or Amazon's Undone TV series. And, ultimately this is a question of your reality and kind of what's real and, what has meaning. So it gave it like this artifice, having it just be animated. Now, I can't say it's straight animation because obviously it's live action with then an application over it. But it just felt like this added this layer, and I didn't do it as a gimmick. I really love this artistic style, and I always wanted to make a movie like this, and this felt crazy enough to use it on. So.
Totally. I know, both of us are editors, and editing on green screen is obviously a lot different than editing, just regular life out in how we live. So was that a new experience for you to edit that much on green screen and all the VFX that you used?
Yeah, I mean, because she's having to react, specifically Aya, to all these things, and it's like, how long do you hold the shot for? Because you ultimately want to get picture locked, because then it's got to go to sound and score and all color and all that stuff. So we have to have the timing right. But it's like, you might think, oh, okay, a second and a half is good enough for this reaction shot. Then you get the visual effect back. You're like, ooh, we need like 2 seconds. So you're kind of really just guessing it. And like I said, I mean, there's also the moments of you have no idea. So when the morph happens between the mother and the guidance counselor, it's like, how the hell do I pull that off just as far as the edit? And yeah, you're watching this thing and you're like, is this good? I can't tell anymore. Because yeah, so, but you take it piece by piece and eventually you get to the finish line.
Right. When you're in the thick of it, it's like hard to tell. But once you see the whole picture, it's like, you get it. You get it, definitely. Yeah. So deciding to make it rotoscope, talk about that. And how did the rotoscope work?
So, like I said, it's a style that I really love, and this felt right for it. And sure, some people can say like, well, you don't need it. It could work just as well with live action. And sure, but I just, if I was ever going to go for it, I felt like now was the time. And, but the thing is, it's an intensive process, right? Normally people have to hand paint frame by frame. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, if they're painting frame by frame, why don't, a film at the end of the day is a series of images. So is there essentially a Photoshop version of what I'm trying to create? And if so, if I can do that and script it, then why can't I just, essentially do it frame by frame, but just through a computer? So it's not true rotoscope animation in that sense, but I found a lot of Photoshop tutorials and so forth. And Jonathan Moulton and I went back and forth, and he found one that he liked, I found one that I liked, and we both liked parts of the other one. And then he was like, well, why don't we just combine them? And I was like, how the hell do you do that?
Show me that. Yeah.
So yeah, and then he was like, then he showed me, he's like, just throw it into After Effects, and you can blend the layers through, we did a multiplied blending. And yeah, like in the end it worked, and it didn't tax the computer as much as you would think. Like I think ultimately for like a 4-minute piece like this, it took 7 hours of render time, which is
that's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad at all. I would have thought that it would take a much longer time than that.
Yeah,
so.
I thought I would have to tie up like one of my computers for like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it's a lot of information that the computer is going through, but it looks great. Now everyone loves to like kind of get into the budget, and how much did it cost to actually pull that off?
It basically cost as much as my first feature film.
For the 4-minute. Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're gonna go big, go big.
Yeah, but it also, so I looked at it, I was like, okay, this was at around the time we were getting the second round of stimulus money. So I was like, let me put in the stimulus money to make this movie. And, so I used that as the barometer, and then it just kind of kept going up from there, just because, it was all new to me. I didn't know how to budget and so forth. And at that point, you're kind of like in for a penny, in for a pound. So, it's like, if I don't put in the extra money, then I don't have a short film that actually works. And, ultimately with this, like trying to raise $1 million budget, it's like, no one's going to give me that money for the $1 million budget. I mean, that's what it ultimately is all about, is this idea that I know this film I can't make without the financing. And so I needed this as a stepping stone to that. And so, it was like, let's go for it. And so, yeah, I think I have to do the final calculations, but I'm pretty sure it costs as much as my first feature.
That's just how it goes sometimes. Where are you now? Like, where is this in the process now? Where do you go from here?
So we have a pitch deck done. We have synopsis, for this that's very tight. My friend, script doctor John Comerford, who's also produced this and heavily involved in a lot of my projects, he's polishing up the script as well now. So the next phase is really trying to talk with investors as well as producers to see who really wants to make this. Luckily, I have various people in the business that are curious to see this. Now, where it goes from there, we'll see. But I didn't want to push before I had at least this done, and kind of all my ducks lined up with the pitch, with the script, with this proof of concept, with a budget, and all of that. I like to have things good to go.
All your I's dotted and T's crossed. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's it for Phil for at least right now. He will be back later along with Candace Cruz to answer any questions that you might have. So if you do have any questions, be sure to drop them in the chat and we will collect them and ask them in the Q&A section. But for right now, let's take a look at a really fun behind the scenes moment of Candace Cruz, who plays Aya.
Can you run into the wall for me real quick?
Aya, I'm about to call you. Nervous? Don't worry. It's a good thing.
Excellent.
Good.
Love it. Let's do it one more time. Just like that. Okay. So now you got that, right?
You're on.
All right, we're back with Candace Cruz, who plays Aya. Hey, Candace, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very excited because this is my first time seeing everything right now with you guys. So.
Oh, wow. So it's a premiere for you too.
It is, exactly.
That's great. That is so awesome. So what did you think of what you saw?
I mean, it's so crazy because I walked in and I obviously had no idea what to expect. I'd never worked with green screen to this capacity. So it was a whole new challenge for me as an actor to really envision everything that Phil had given me. And he was so great at illustrating everything as much as possible. It's hard to explain and then what you see at the end. So you kind of have to figure out what you're looking at in your own mind and just create it. And it was beautiful. I had no idea that it would come out to this amazingness, I guess is the world. Is that a word? We're gonna make it a word. We're gonna make it a word. But yeah, it was an amazing opportunity to work with Phil and just to really challenge myself to do that and to see how it turned out.
Yeah. Now you've been a part of the process, or you've seen it from conception until obviously today, the premiere. Yeah. So take us way back to the beginning and what you were thinking and the whole process.
It is an incredible concept, something that I don't think anyone's ever seen before. And that's not typically the genre that I watch. I'm a rom-com girl. But I love a fantasy. I love anything that's very intelligent and you really have to figure it out. And so when Phil called me up, he was like, are you interested in this? And he told me the concept. I was like, absolutely. And then once I got the script and we did the first table read, I was all in. I think what I love so much about Aya is that she goes through such a journey of self-discovery, and especially juxtaposed to what we're going through currently with the pandemic. Just for me as a person going through this, I was going through my own self-exploration and discovery. And, I think that the way that her journey went and got to learn so much more about her, and then trying to encapsulate all of that in 4 minutes as well was just even more of a puzzle to put together. And it was a really, really cool experience to do the beginning until now.
Yeah. Now, how did you prepare for this role? What was the most difficult part of it and how did you prepare?
That's always my favorite question to ask people, because it's always such a fun, just kind of to get to know the person and the actor and the artist. And I would call up Phil a lot and be like, okay, wait, so what is her relationship with this person and how did that evolve? And what was she like as a teenager? And I just really wanted to know as much as possible about her. That way you can kind of throw it away, because we all have our nuances, right? We all have our experiences that influence how we react to something in the moment in time. And I feel like that's such a big part of my process, as well as music. I'm a huge music person, so I always make a playlist per character. So I would listen to her playlist and I would just kind of relive different experiences, especially because we do have some flashbacks that you saw, just so you can really have that full emotion when you're experiencing that with her. Because 9 times out of 10, especially with this project, there aren't as many scripted words, so all of it has to be internal. And I think that was a lot of my process going into it.
That's so cool that you made a playlist for her. I gotta know, what was on her playlist?
Oh, I gotta go back. Hold on. Let me pull up some of these. I'll pull up my spot. You know what? I'm gonna send you my Spotify link and have all my songs. But I did have a lot more of a little bit darker, kind of the best way to describe it is those emo songs that we used to have back in the day in the early 2000s. For me, I love Paramore. So very much that type of vibe, if that is the best explanation for anyone else.
I get it. And I feel like because it's so techy, that Paramore and that dark type of music, emo music, perfect playlist. How do you view the character of Ayla yourself, or Aya yourself?
How do I view her?
Yeah.
I think I don't want to say confused, because I don't think that that's an accurate word, but I think she is kind of going through that journey that a lot of us go through, that I personally am going through, of your late 20s, you're coming into your own. It's almost a coming of age story, but also where's your morality? Why is it that you're arguing with certain things, and why are you so passionate about certain points? And I think she's just really figuring out, because when you're younger, you're like, this is what I believe in, but you really don't have a backing to why you believe it. You just believe it. And I think as we age, or at least my own opinion is that you kind of have to figure out why you believe in certain things and kind of dismantle them and then put them back together. And I think that she's in that space of really just coming into her own. And I always, it's interesting when you're going back into prep of character, you can't judge a character. I think a lot of people are like, this person's good, and we're all in flux as humans. And I think that the more you take away the judgment of it and you just kind of realize their situation, I think that's when you fall more in love with the person that you're playing and you're embodying.
Definitely. I mean, it seems like, when you're growing as a person, you just, you learn more and whatnot. So what was it like walking into an apartment full of green screen and lights, and you not even, being with certain characters at certain times and having to act like that? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
What is going on?
I mean, I will say, in the middle of a pandemic and going onto a set, I'd been on a couple prior to this, so I was kind of a little prepared, but you never really know, especially now with just protocol and wanting to keep everyone safe. But Phil made it such an easy environment. But walking in, I was just in awe. Like it just looked insane, like amazing, insane, not like insane, like, oh my God, it was incredible. And I even said that I just kept looking around, like, how I like to be able to do this during the middle of a pandemic in general, but not even in the middle of a pandemic, in just life, and really bringing to life a dream and putting it together to this level. Like, it felt very professional. It felt like, okay, like I need to step up my game here. Like, I need to make sure that what I give is my all. And yeah.
Right, because you're part of a team at that point, trying to get this thing off the ground. So definitely. When you're filming and you're filming out of order, out of sequence, does that ruin the flow for you, or do you kind of get in your own type of flow because you're so into the character?
I think it does take a little bit at the beginning to kind of get into a flow, because I mean, again, you're being thrown into a green screen. There's no one with you. Like, you kind of have to get your body used to it. You have to get your mind used to it, because at first, even as an actor, you're like, this is really weird. Like, I'm literally playing pretend by myself. There is nothing. Am I creating the right vision in my brain that it's coming out my face? So you kind of have to get rid of the inhibitions, and then it's just playtime. So it took a little while to get into the groove of it. But once I was there, I was like, this is great. Clearly, I really wanted to get into it. As you saw in the blooper, can you run into the wall for me so I know what it's like to run into a wall and not actually hit anything?
Exactly. Get that.
Like, how does my body move when you do that? Yeah.
So was seeing a storyboard before helpful in that, to be like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to feel or look here, and then to the next scene, Did that help you?
It did a lot. And I am definitely, when I work with the director, I want them to like lay it all out. Like, let me know everything, like what direction, like almost choreography of like point. And then I can kind of add in the layers and whatnot. So the storyboard plus him instructing me and being like, this is the emotion that she's feeling at this point, it kind of helped influence where I was going with everything.
All right. I want to know, what are some of the similarities and some of the differences between you, Candace, as a person? And
Ooh, that's a good question. Similarities, stubborn in the best way possible. I think that, and her passion. I feel like stubbornness and passion go hand in hand. I think that she really just wants good for people, and she wants to fight for that. And I think that that's such a valuable asset to have. And I think at the same time, there's a reminiscing of like the past and growing up. If you notice in that shot where she's looking into the ocean and she's remembering certain things, I am a very nostalgic person. So I think that's another element that we share.
Speaking of the ocean, what was it like jumping into the ocean in January? Are you part of the Polar Bear Club? Like, what is that?
Listen, I had always watched a polar bear plunge, and I was like, these people are absolutely nuts. Like, who in their right mind would do this? I had just traveled back like 2 weeks out. So I quarantined from the holidays and came back, and I went and got my parka cleaned. So I was like ready. I was going to the beach and I had my parka. I was ready to go. And you know what? It was actually very invigorating. Once you got in, it was so nice.
That's amazing. I mean, that's what my dad says when he like jumps into a cold pool, and I'm like, no, that's too much for me.
Yep.
It's refreshing.
It was actually, we wanted to stay in a little bit longer because we were like, oh, we're like wide awake. And mind you, it was like 8:30 in the morning, 9:30 or something like that. It was fairly early. And we were like, we could just stay here.
You are braver than I. You are definitely braver than I.
I'm also like, if we're going to do this, like, let's not, excuse my French, half-ass it. Let's like go all the way in and let's like really give it our all, because you don't want to have something turn out that's just kind of like piecemeal. You want to make sure that you give everything possible to your team.
And that's a sign of a good actress.
Oh, thank you.
Giving it all to the team. Exactly. All right. So let's open up this to the audience questions to Phil and Candace and see what we got going in the chat. If you guys have any other questions for them, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll try to get to all of them. Let's see, and Phil is back on. So an audience question is, the style is so unique and cool. How did you develop it, and what was shooting and special effects process like? I take it that's for Phil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as far as what we tried to lay out, you know, for me, it was really pushing myself in that way. Like, it's interesting for me, I'm a much more organic filmmaker. Like, if you watch Idol, it's a very fluid camera movement. It embraces imperfections, whereas this is very heavily built upon a structure, and you have to get it exactly right. And, you know, poor Jonathan, he's like telling me, like, in order to do this, you know, you need to make sure you have the symmetry all lined up, this and that. Poor Khalil's telling me you got to have the lighting correct. I'm like, we'll fix it in post, knowing that I'm the guy like primarily like handling the post and stuff like that. But so, you know, for me, there is that dance of having this organic blend, but also having it be, you know, structured in that way. And so, you know, like I said, you take it piece by piece. That's why, you know, I'm someone who generally doesn't do storyboards. I actually much rather prefer a shot script because it gives me a sense of the coverage I have, and I'll figure out the angles and so forth on the day of. But I knew I couldn't do that with this, especially because, you know, I don't think we talked about it. I didn't have a crew. It was literally, you know, I wanted to keep it as minimal as possible. So, you know, it was me running camera, sound, everything, and all that. And there was a part in the, you know, the set, right, doesn't rotate. So we had a camera locked off. And so I had to rotate the actors and keep telling, all right, now the podium is on this side, even though it was on that side in the last shot. So, and as confusing as it was for them, it was also confusing for me. I was like, I had to stop every couple now and then and be like, all right, hey guys, can you guys help me out here? What's the spatial relationship here? So
yeah, that's a lot to keep, you know, in your head and keep track of in your head, because there's, you know, nothing else there. So interesting. Exactly. All right, we got another question. It says, this gives me Netflix Black Box vibes in the best way. Were you inspired by the series?
I personally wasn't, because I haven't seen it. You know, it's always interesting. Like, everyone gives me like a reading or viewing list of what it reminds them of. And sometimes people get a little hesitant of, do I go down the journey and watch this because then I'll be too inspired by it and like draw from it. I don't, because I think that for me, it helps me avoid cliches. And I love everyone. And as much as they say it reminds them of something, it's none of those things, I promise you, in terms of what the full thing is. And I'm not being facetious in that sense. It just literally is not, you know? So I don't know. Am I lying, Candace? You tell me.
No, I agree. I mean, you kept giving me all this other stuff, like the inspiration, like you said, even prior to in your interview. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like take exactly face value what you're giving me and then come from there. Cause I don't want to fall into the trap of imitation for me specifically. I don't know if that's the same for you, but like as an actor, I don't want to get into the point of where like I'm watching something that is influencing and then end up giving a similar performance or something like that.
Yeah. By the way, I thought of another similarity between Candace and Aya.
Oh, I'm interested. Tell me.
Just your ability, like, to think so fast on your feet with this high level of intelligence. Like, it was amazing to work with you on this in that capacity. Like, because for me, Aya, she's so quick and is able to pull so many references and just, yeah, like she's well read. You are too.
Well, thank you. It was amazing working with you. I know that that's not the question that we were going off of, but like you did point out that you were the one-man band, and I was insanely impressed, not only by the setup, but like I've never done shots so quickly that he was like, nope, we got it. Let's go. Let's move on. I'm like, are you sure? Like I can give this. No. That was good. Let's move on. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phil is very decisive when it comes to things like that.
Which I'm not. So I love that about someone else. Someone be decisive for me.
Well, I think, let me also say this, right? The whole joke that I made about we'll fix it in post, I can do that because I'm shooting it and I'm editing it. I understand I didn't do the visual effects for it. So I knew like there being wrinkles on the ground. I was like, they're going to hate me for this, but I have to shoot it. And so forth. But when you are the editor, like Rob Rodriguez says, you can have that leeway. And I know exactly what I need to get. So I don't need to get all this extra coverage of Candace just for the sake of it. I'm like, we got it. We're good. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Another audience question. Oh, this one's about the playlist, Candace.
People want to know the playlist.
People want the songs.
Yeah, I knew right away that was going to be a thing. They're not going to be like, yeah, I made a playlist. Whatever, let's move on.
People love playlists. Let me tell you. I subscribe to a ton of playlists.
Listen, I'll say this. Let's see how we match up, right? So, because I think I got asked a question about it too. So for me, Aya always would listen to Rage Against the Machine, Renegades of Funk. Now, that's a very guy answer, probably. See, look at Candace's reaction to that. Her playlist is probably something completely polar opposite.
Yes. Savage featuring Flux Pavilion and Max. Can I curse on this?
Sure.
Okay. Boss Bitch by Doja Cat. Also, Alone Part 2 with Ava Max. Breaking Me Topic. I said Paramore, Cascade, Kygo. The list goes on. Savage is on here twice, so that was one I listened to a lot.
That was the theme.
That was the theme.
Going through. See, people are getting new musical influences here. Love it. Okay, this next question is for Phil. Oh yeah, I guess it's the same thing. Did you have a playlist that you watched to prep for this? I guess for the whole entire filming of this.
For the entire filming, I'm not sure.
Even when you're writing.
It depends, right? So like, there's songs that work as far as what I would think the character is, but very much, on prep day, I like, for me, before Candace came, I like listened to various pump up songs because, at that point, I'm not trying to get into the character. I'm trying to almost, for me, it's like a sport, right? So like no different than I'm going into a soccer game, I got to be ready. Now I didn't, when you work with actors, like sometimes I didn't know how she would want things. So I didn't want to have it loud. I like literally quieted everything. So that way, when she came in, it was like, you dictate the mood of how you want it. And, we'll do that. But because I didn't want to, if she was like going to be in the zone, all of a sudden hearing this music, I didn't want to throw her off.
That's considerate of you. That's good. That's good. All right. Well, that wraps up the Q&A section, audience Q&A section of this. So right now we're going to take a look at some of the crew. Let's take a look.
Laughlin. I am playing Aya's guidance counselor. And the way that I prepared for this role was I just thought about my nephew and try to be as nurturing as possible. I also prepared by putting gray streaks in my hair, Those were not real. I just used foundation and a little bit of magic, which I mean is eyeshadow. A little gray and white eyeshadow. A little bit about Lucia Tarantino. I met her in class, and I felt like she was like perfect for this role because her and I did a short scene for class for the film Room with Brie Larson, and she played my mother, and I just felt really connected to her. And so when Phil came to me asking me if I knew anybody, I knew that Lucia was perfect. She is very warm and she's got a deep soul, and I just know that she's perfect for roles like this because she really has a depth to her that really reads well on the screen.
Grace DeMarco is someone I've known for a number of years, and from the first time I met her, I just saw this amazing, incredible spirit, which is why when I was making my feature film, I just kind of reached out and said, hey, would you want to be part of this? And she said yes. And I never forgot that. It was a fun experience. And when it came to this, I also saw her role in the role of Emma. As soon as I kind of explained what it was, she was like, yeah, let's do it. When it comes to Daryl Kristen, he is primarily a host, and a fantastic one at that, but he is also an actor. As of late, he's been doing more and more acting roles. I reached out to him. I said, hey, I've got this role for you. Would you want to do it? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Funny enough, given that he's a principal delivering sort of like a commencement speech, Daryl told me he channeled his inner Obama to deliver that performance. Very late in the process, when VFX were nearly complete and sound design came in, I noticed when all the buildings are kind of falling down around Aya, it just didn't feel as chaotic as it could have been. And so I wanted to include the mom of Aya and the dad of Aya kind of being these voices that clash and so forth with her mental state. James Lott Jr. is a dear friend of mine with a fantastic voice, wonderful artist in every sense of the word. And so I reached out to him. I said, hey, is this something that you could do? Let's play around with this. I don't truthfully even know what I'm exactly looking for, but let's play here and see what we come up with. And he was game for it, and that's why I love James Lott Jr. Steve Bottomley is someone I've known for a decade, and I was looking for something to fill out portions of the film. This was very towards the end, and just to kind of make it all fit. And one of my biggest things with the film itself was that it wasn't a standalone film. And so, I was kind of trying to figure out with Steve what could fit. And then I said to him, what if you narrated this commercial and whatnot, and that can kind of open it up. And he did it. I have to highlight Jason Squamata, who is the co-writer with me on this script. Without him, none of this would be possible. He likes to live in anonymity. John Comerford is someone that I never want to do a movie without. He is an amazing storyteller down to like a science. He can figure out like, okay, not only if something's not working, but what to do to fix it, both from the script perspective as well as the editing perspective. Khalil Abdelrahim, he is a jack of all trades. He has created multiple series that are both brilliant and funny, inventive, and whatnot. He obviously starred in Idol, but he also helped me behind the scenes on that one. And so that sort of relationship continued into this project. And he is actually responsible for helping me with the lighting and set up the whole green screen the night before. Ian Kaiser is a producer who's very, very humble, but makes amazing projects. His last film, St. Francis, won the Audience Award at South by Southwest. He recently just finished up another movie, and though he'll joke that he wants to get out of filmmaking, I think he's just someone who is absolutely incredible.
Hey all, I'm Cody, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to compose the score for this film. I've known Phil for about 15 years now. We met back at Emerson, and we've been working on projects ever since. I'm lucky enough to have worked on music and scores and art for a number of his projects, and definitely look forward to more collaborations in the future. So, hope you enjoy.
Courtney Stewart in a lot of things that she does, I believe, is an unsung hero. She is someone who is able to both be very meticulous and organize people, but at the same time, she is able to be creative, right? That's what makes her this amazing person on any project that she's involved with, because she brings both those elements together. Morgan Lester is someone I met through Courtney Stewart, and what I love about her is she's just got this wonderful spirit of like, all right, let's do it. That's the type of spirit that I always want around me, and the fact that she has that 24/7 is just fantastic. Thomas Tamura is someone that I met on this project specifically. He really seemed to get the project. We had great conversations. We seemed to connect. Obviously, he delivered what I ultimately wanted, even when sometimes I didn't know exactly what I was looking for in those moments. So I appreciate his patience with me. Edgar Cortez is someone that I met because of Idol, and he's an incredible sound designer from Colombia. Honestly, I never want to do a project without him. He brings so much creativity to the sound design, the sound mix. I gave him a general direction in terms of what I was looking for, and then he's able to interpret that and take it to a new level, especially with something like this. I also want to shout out Emily Kremp-Holtz, who is someone I met while working on my first novel. And so when I had this initial idea for a feature film, she was someone I tapped right away and said, hey, I'm going to need your help on this. And I know your background isn't script writing, but I think you know storytelling, and so you're going to be of value to me. And so if you're game, I'd love to have you. And luckily she was.
Hey, my name is Jonathan Moulton, and I am a visual effects artist, and I love to just pretty much do anything visual effects related in the film industry. So one of the things that drew me to this project was I like the story, but while I was listening to the story during the table read, my mind was just envisioning a lot. That paired with the conversations I was having with Phil beforehand, we were talking about the movie Undone and Scanner Darkly and the artistic process that went into doing that. We were trying to come up with a method to essentially recreate what was going on there, but with a lot less artists and using more of a technical approach with an artistic approach. And that to me just sounds amazing. The fact that you can record it on green screen, you can pretty much put these people in any kind of environment, which is super fun because you can just make anything and everything.
That was the talented crew that put this all together. And if you want to check out any of their work, everyone's links are included down below. They're all really talented people, so be sure to check it out. And please spread the word for this short film. Let's get some buzz going for it. And if you or anyone you know is interested in producing, financing, anything with this film, don't hesitate to reach out to Phil. We want to thank you so much for joining on this Saturday. And please go and check out Phil's YouTube channel. He's a content creator. He's super passionate about teaching people and the content he creates. And he is your 360 creative coach. So go check it out. Have a great weekend and see you later.
And that's Alina Vission, everyone.